The perfect cleanse and reboot for a healthy immune system. Natural. Miracle food is suitable for all ages.
Welcome to another episode of the Hip Hop Uncensored podcast. I'm your brother Ogai from Hip Hop News Uncensored, and sitting across from me is my co-host.
What up, y'all? It's your man Sam Ant, CEO of Viral Hip Hop News. You're in the building for a very special edition of the Hip Hop Uncensored podcast. We got back on the podcast a lovely Miss Dr. Lillie Coley is on the podcast. How you doing today, Doctor?
I'm doing great, guys. How you guys doing?
Great.
Absolutely, very well. And thank you for coming back on the podcast. For the people who don't know, for the people who need to be updated, Ms. Coley is the godmother of Rymir Satterthwaite, the alleged son of Jayz. Now, we've had both Rymir and Ms. Coley on the podcast numerous times now, and I think we did very well, and we made a lot of headway. I would say, as far as the media is concerned, a lot of people had questions. A lot of people were feeling their sorts of ways about it, and we have her back on.
Yes,
because she has some very important information to deliver to the people. So, Ms. Coley, the floor is yours. How's everything been going since the interviews, and what do you have for us now?
Everything has been going great since the interviews, and I've been looking at the response from the community, and because I'm a community girl, I felt there was a need to come back and to clarify things. Mm-hmm. I realized with this type of platform and being similar to television, etc., people, you're not going to make friends, and everybody don't want to be your friend. Mm-hmm. But I do want to inform the public what's going on, what's happening, and just lay it all out there. Then they can do whatever they want. So one of the biggest things was there's a few questions I saw in the chat. The biggest one was about this DNA sibling test. Why was it blocked? And I think one of you guys had asked me the question, but I might not have clarified.
Right.
So at the time that the young lady, I think her name is Letitia, we call him T, which was the daughter of Mr. Carter. She was going through her own battle, so to speak, with trying to make that known. So at the time she was doing, I guess she called herself alleged, I don't know. But nonetheless, it was right around that same time her and Rymir was about to go do the sibling test. Now, some people said, well, why? So she stopped that. So and in order for her to carry out her legal stuff, she made a decision with her family, whatever, not to go do anything else until that was done. Other people wanted to know, well, why don't he do a DNA, or not a DNA, an ancestry? The ancestry wouldn't do anything for Rymir. Although he can do it, it won't do anything for him. Some of the family members that the other young lady used, right now, you don't have any access to them. So I think as far as the part about having everything confirmed in regard to Rymir, he in his heart knows, based on some other circumstances, who his father is. So in this regard, there was DNA that was given to the other side back in 2011. So we're talking about almost 11 years ago. So they pretty much know already the circumstance, and that's the way he sees it. So going to do an ancestry wouldn't do anything as far as the court is concerned. It would make him obviously more better in regard to his information. But some of the persons that he would try to get right now, those persons are also, that count is not blocked, but is limited. So once Letitia did what she did to the family members she had access to, he don't have access to those same people. And in his mind, based on what he said, he don't feel it makes any sense to go on that ring because he already knows the truth. He wants it to be coming from what he believes is his father.
Now,
so I just want to clarify.
Now, Dr. Coley, what would the truth be? Do you know that truth that he knows?
Well, I think, yeah. See, and some of this is like, I won't say it's a complete puzzle, but some of this is just approximation of elimination. If somebody gives you DNA 12, 11 years ago, or that somebody says they're your son, and you have some sort of interest, or even somewhere in that midst of that, things just go the way they go, you still got the DNA, but you had it since 2011. You know people are going to test it. You know somebody's going to look at that and say what they're going to say. Because that could have been an easy way to come out and say, hey, It is what it is, or it's not what it is. So we believe that he's his father. And Rymir believes it. And based on the fact that he's had the DNA for so long and never said anything outside that, we know somebody at his level and his attorney's level, it's very simple for them to just go do what they got to do.
Now,
so
give us some more clarity on the DNA. Again, can you kind of just go through that again? Because I wasn't really clear on what you meant by the DNA. Who took the test, and who were the tests taken with in relation to Jayz?
So, in this DNA that we're talking about was a paternity test that Wanda did back in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
She had 2 men come into court or petitioned by the court, even though it didn't get mailed to them. That was her goal. She did 2 men. One was not by the name of Robert Graves. The other one was Sean Carter. So neither man showed up at court, and this is in the Philadelphia case. Therefore, in between that or right after that, she presumed a DNA test with Robert because Robert was willing to do it after the fact. And it was done through the court system. And he was eliminated. That information, DNA, was given to the defense team and said, this is what has happened. And Mr. Graves has been eliminated. So the way the court system works is you have to eliminate yourself. So if you are presumed to be the father, you have to eliminate yourself by taking the test and saying you're not. So Robert Graves did take the DNA. He was eliminated. Mr. Carter never did. In fact, he was not served the first time. He was served the second time, but he never took the test. And that's where we are right now.
Does that kind of make sense? Go on, I'm sorry. Go.
I'm going to say then, of course, we went to New Jersey, which is a whole nother thing. But in the meantime, back in Pennsylvania, you got the test. See, in a DNA, it shows what the elements are for that person's DNA. And you can easily take that and compare it. In fact, Rymir's DNA is kind of public because it's in the Philadelphia system where it's been out there, and it's also intertwined, obviously, in New Jersey. But somebody can take his DNA and compare it to theirs and know what the situation is.
Now, does that kind of tie into some of the misconceptions of the case that you were speaking on? You said that there was a lot of people that did not understand the kind of nuances and the ins and outs of the case.
Yeah, that was one thing in regard to the fact that he already has the DNA and the DNA speaks for itself. But the biggest thing was there was things that happened in Pennsylvania as far as the collusion and then switching of names and things like that so that it could delay stuff. Because I wasn't a party then. I wasn't a party until I got to New Jersey. But the confusion really came with the fact that people were talking about the sibling test. Why was it blocked? How can somebody block a test? It wasn't that somebody literally blocked it as far as what I was referring to. It was referring to Letitia. She was going to take a sibling test with Rymir when he was in New Jersey. But because of her own litigations that was going on, she chose to stop it at that moment. And then some of the persons that she used in her own ancestry, that we don't have access to them. You have to get access to certain people. But that was not the goal, was to be in the ancestry and say, hey, I know I'm the father or I know I'm the son. The whole thing was for the father to acknowledge the son. That was what in his mind was the thing. So the other thing they asked in the chat there was if you guys don't have any more questions.
Yeah, I got one more real quick. Birth certificate. Did the alleged father at the time sign Rymir's birth certificate or no?
No. So the birth certificate was signed by the minors. Let me just quickly say how when Wanda got pregnant, she was a minor. She was 16. First pregnancy, it was a hard pregnancy. Robert Graves was an on and off boyfriend. They never lived together till he moved in later, but they were in high school. And because Wanda was pretty much sedated most of her pregnancy, the nurse kept asking who's going to sign. Robert Graves, a minor at the time, felt sorry for her and just signed the birth certificate. So when he signed that birth certificate, it was not valid because he was a minor. So right before I took Rymir to New Jersey, his name was removed from the birth certificate based on the DNA.
Okay.
So that's what we sent to the other camp. We sent to the other camp when Wanda made the petition for both of them. They both didn't do it. And then one decided to do it after the fact, Graves, and this is when they were grown. Mm-hmm. And then when he did it, obviously he was eliminated. So his information was sent to the other side to show that he's been eliminated. And once he was eliminated, he's automatically removed from the birth certificate. He never was per se the father. He never called him out. So therefore, there was no relationship, which was one of the reasons why Wanda was trying to sever it, because she wanted her son to know who his father was before she died. She said that was the one thing she saw that she knew she had to fix before she left this earth. That's what she said. So nonetheless, when that happened, nobody's on the birth certificate now. I don't know if you've seen it online, but that's also public. So you have a certified DNA showing one man has been eliminated and a birth certificate showing that there's no man on the birth certificate. So people were beating her up on why did she call this other man out? Why did she have this other man do this for all these years? She didn't do that. He did that voluntarily by mistake, knowing that the child may not be his. He was young and didn't know any better. And then later on, they gave him a chance to fix it up. He didn't do anything. And then we fixed it later.
Now, on the last interview, you talked and brought up numerous times about properties that you own. Talk about how that ties into the case and why that was very important to talk about during that interview.
Right. So when we got to New Jersey, we're in New Jersey now. Take the kid over to the bridge from this whole shenanigan. Wanda's getting sicker over time. I bring him over to New Jersey and I go through this case naive. I'm believing in the process. I'm believing in the rule of law. We're going to go to court and do the right thing. And in the beginning, it kind of worked out. But then, as I think I said before, it's the outhouse, not the in-house, but the outhouse attorneys, these are external attorneys, was like kids in a candy store. And I consider very, small firms, nobody knows them, kind of low end, 1 and 2 people, was very excited about having a client. But the reason why the one lady had the client in New Jersey is because she was married to the husband in Pennsylvania. And that still was a small firm, but it was a good one. Mm-hmm. So here we are in New Jersey. We got this situation going with me bringing the information to the courts and doing what I need to do for the child. And then over time, they decided they wanted to get people out of the picture. That's how this works. They didn't go to Wanda. They didn't go to her son. They came to me. And they wanted me to cut a deal, leave them out, and let this all go away. And I said, no. So as a result of that, and the judge did that, believe it or not. A judge did that to me in New Jersey. So because I didn't go along with them, they decided to go after my properties. And I knew that was a part of it's a little, not a deal, but a part of the system, so to speak, but it's illegal.
Now, how they come at your properties? Sorry to interrupt you.
Right. So what they try to do is they try to put illegal liens on your property for stuff that doesn't exist. So what they have to do is manufacture a illegal motion, something that didn't happen. You go in and the attorney gets paid. I guess the judge might get a cut. And then what the whole end result would be that they would attach whatever they call, because I'm not going to agree with it. They're going to attach whatever I don't agree with. They're going to try to attach that to my property. And they haven't been successful. But because one of the firms was dealing with real estate and family law in a real estate firm, I guess they thought that they could do some backdoor stuff. So that was the reason why I kept bringing that up, was because of the fact that I know that other people told me that the family court, judges and court itself, will love to try to put attachments or liens against people's property if they can't get you to do what they want you to do. So that's why I kept bringing it up. Not because, I'm trying to show nothing. Right. And also because I wanted people to see the very thing we were defrauded on and dealing with jurisdiction or properties or being attached to a state, the very fraud, they were trying to use the same fraud to come after my property. Wow. So they profited from the fraud, and now you want to use the fraud. And I'm supposed to sit back and do nothing. And that's where a lot of the problems came in.
If you can be a little more specific for our audience, if you can, if not, it's fine. what type of things did they try to attach liens on, your property for? You can explain that to the audience.
It was illegal motions. There was illegal or what they call manufactured motions that they would try to file, saying that we did something in the public. In one instance, we talked to the press. We could talk to anybody we want to, right. Or we gave files to somebody. All this stuff. The thing is, nothing never happened. It was all illusions. And in order to lure you into the court, you had to create a motion. So they were creating motions on false things, trying to make the false things appear true. And whether you came in and said no or not, they would not go to the next level and do a fair due process or discovery. But this all hinges on the fraud from the beginning. There's fraud that took place in the very beginning. And anything after that is considered fraud on top of fraud. Therefore, you can't even do anything until the first piece of fraud is dealt with. But they were trying.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Now, have you taken these matters up with legal counsel? And if you did, what did they say about, these alleged frauds that you're saying that went down in court?
They said the reason why the attorneys are doing it because they know they can get away with it.
Wow.
That's what my attorney told me. He said the reason why they're doing it because they know they can get away with it. We had a black judge who did it. How about that? The first judge started out trying to do the right thing. And then after he got, and that was in 2012, it said fraud from the beginning. After that, it went downhill. If we don't resolve the fraud from the beginning, the statutes and some of the things I might have sent you about the fraud, all that's considered to be legal nullity. You cannot litigate and profit or use an illegal order because that's considered trespassing in the law.
Right.
So you have my attorney that I had that passed away. I think he passed away in 2019. He told me the reason why they're doing it is because they can get away with it. And there was just a kid in the candy store and also abuse of process. Greed. I saw greed to the highest level. I saw crimes in the court right before my eyes. And the reason why it took this long is because we were trying to let it work itself into the system, thinking the higher court was going to surely fix it. Never happened. So here we are stuck back to where we are and things are in limbo. And they're in limbo because until you deal with the fraud and the fraud on the court, which was the jurisdiction, lying about the properties, blah, 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 nothing else matters. Nothing in that courthouse after that date and after is considered to be legal. According to the stuff, it says the fraud upon the court, everything in that court is considered void. Mm-hmm. And until you get that court to deal with the fraud, which they're not going to do because it takes everybody down, you're in limbo. There's other options, but that's where we are.
Let me ask you this. In your opinion, where or why does the greed lie in this situation? And where does the greed and responsibility to greed, who does that fall on when it comes to the court? And why do you think there is greed in this situation?
Well, it's definitely abuse of power and greed. Whenever you have a high profile case and people have money, certain amounts of money don't mean nothing to them. They can just write it off. And the lawyers know that. The lawyers also, in addition to the greed, was filing, and we believe, because some of the persons, especially in Philadelphia, were filing false claims in their insurance company. This is a deep thing. It goes deeper than what we see on the surface. So not only they're collecting money from their client and whatever they're trying to do, they're trying to collect money from you. They know they're not going to get none. But then in order to make you go away or to make it stop, they want to try to do something to your property. Well, that didn't work either because people know better. But the greed and stuff has to be coming from the top. There is, and I say the top meaning the court, who colludes with the attorneys. And then depending on the client, and this happens a lot in family court, in other courts too, but family court, where whoever got the most money kind of wins or kind of tells what's going on. In our case, they started out with what they did with the fraud, and then somebody couldn't stop. In my view, the attorney in New Jersey, small firm, 2.5 people, you married to the man in Philadelphia, and she wanted money. And the only way she can get the money and do, I guess, in collusion with her husband or whatever she was doing, is to lure us into court off of fictitious, egregious, and blanketly lying statements. And that's what she did. But it doesn't mean anything because it's just paper. Even the orders that the judge did, whatever he signs, and there's not fair due process, and you don't go through what you need to go through, it doesn't mean anything. This is what's sad about the whole thing. It's a true dog and pony show. But we thought that the system was going to work for us at the higher level. The court systems, the appellate court, and the New Jersey Supreme Court. We tried to work it through the system. It didn't work. Because then they were never in search of the truth. They never wanted the truth.
So I guess you're insinuating, in my opinion, if I'm wrong, correct me, that since it's Jay-Z, since it's he has more money, fame, all that power, that these several courts, didn't want nothing to do with it, so they took whatever side or whatever his side of the story was, they took that as gospel. Is that what you're pretty much saying to us?
They took his side, but in other words, they didn't do anything. In the court system, whenever somebody files a motion, you respond to that, and then if there's a disagreement, you get a discovery. Mm-hmm. The problem was they were never in search of it. They made it stop. So in one aspect, yes, they figured he made the money, most money, and maybe they were getting something out of it. In fact, I think I said last time I was here, one of the attorneys, she said that the judge was in her pocket.
Damn.
She told me. So I don't think that it's obviously about somebody having enough money, but it's also what they're getting out of it. Maybe they want to get something else outside of it besides the money. Who knows? But for sure, it runs very deep. And we did find out some things about how deep, because you got people, related to people, somebody married over here. It's a lot of sick stuff going on, but we don't care about none of that. Just follow the law, follow what you took the Constitution to be. And for whatever reason, they felt because this wasn't a deserving case of Rymir or Wanda, they just wasn't going to let it go through the way it should have went through. And I think that's why God put me in it.
Now this has been going right. Now this has been going on for some time now. Way before Jay-Z even became a billionaire. I mean, he was obviously famous and obviously was in the public light, but he wasn't a billionaire yet. Why do you think this situation, because it's not too far out of the realm of speculation, this kind of thing happens all the time where you can have a child that you don't know about, and then,
right.
You know what I mean? You claim your child and you move on. People move on. Why do you think it's tough for him not only to take the DNA test, but if in fact Rymir is his son, even claim responsibility in that, in your opinion?
Yeah, well, he has two problems. The one, Wanda was a minor, and the two, a whole baby came. So in one hand, you can go around and say the baby ain't yours, and then people say, well, just take the test.
Right.
So if he takes the test, then I guess he thinks in his own mind, that's saying that I slept with a minor. So you still got a problem. Mm-hmm. He's got a problem either way, which is why we never wanted to get to this place. We were trying to work with him, and it did happen in the very beginning so that it wouldn't get to this place for the sake of the child. But unfortunately, people weren't about their pockets. They weren't about whether they can do a scam over here and a scam over here and file something with the insurance over here. Real talk. Right. They try to say a lot of stuff about certain people, and I ain't gonna say no names, about they do this and they do that. People have their own, what they call organized crime, and their own little thing that they do. And this case was ripe for it. It was a right type of case because you can file something with the court and ask for that money there. Then you can go over there and ask for some money because you got a high client. Disgusting. But at the end of the day, they didn't want to think about Rymir because they didn't think he was worthy. They felt that I already had too much. And they didn't even think about Wanda at all to try to do the right thing, the humanity part of it. So I don't know. I think it has a lot about obviously to do with the old, like we were saying, the fact of where somebody is and how they're connected to the infrastructure or the business of money.
Now, if you do know I know you're not an attorney or anything. What would be that law that if, Rymir, I guess he's in his 20s now, mid 20s, what will be the law for a child trying to, get somebody to take a test to confirm that they're their parent in a different state that you guys are trying to pursue Sean Carter in?
I think that for Rymir, that he is at an age now where, especially for New Jersey, inheritance is kind of passed. So he would have to focus on, I think, the real issue of why it never occurred. And it didn't occur because of the fraud in the court to prevent the testing. If you get that going, if you get an AG or someone to look at that and deal with that constitutional piece in the state of New Jersey and other places, it can be retroactive back.
Okay.
He did his case in 2013. They did some similar stuff with him. It was always about money. They were never in search of the truth. So he would have to look at that aspect in regard to, if that's what he still wants, to conclude that. In his heart, I think he knows. But if you're trying to do it through that mechanism, you would have to go through retroactive about where, because fraud in the court has no statutory limitation. You can go back anytime.
Right.
When somebody does fraud, they can never try to come to you and use it. It's not no legal defense. And if they try to present it, then you present the facts. And this is what the court is trying to avoid now. They don't want to deal with it. They've been skipping around it, and we keep giving them the same rule of law. So the best thing they could do is just to keep ignoring it. And it'll keep going in the loop until you get out of that loop. There's other options you can take. But the fraud upon the court is the best option in terms of what we've been through, because that's exactly what happened. There's no legal rights to it. They have no legal rights, and those orders at that court is considered legal nullity, and they know it.
Give the people the information on the big lie, something that you briefed us on briefly, and then elaborate on that for us if you don't mind.
Yeah, the big lie was exactly what we've been talking about, the jurisdiction fraud and the fraud upon the court. So when it started back in 2012, and we gave them ample time to reconcile the record, do the record right, even my attorney before he died, they never did it. So the lie is, I don't have any contacts with the states, with this state of New Jersey. The lie is, I don't have properties. And that particular lie kept going because it was the same lie they used each time to stop the case from moving to the next level. In order to have somebody come in and answer anything about whatever your complaint is, they got to have a tie to the state. It could be business, properties, etc. And we had both of those things. We had certified deeds and we had tax records. Wow. And all you got to do is go through a discovery and say, are these yours? Is this to your name? Blah, blah, blah. And none of that was done. So that big lie just kept on from 2012 to now. And the court, every time we present it, when everything went through the upper courts all these years, and it came back full circle, what the next question is, the same one was the first one. So that's why it's a big lie, because they're not trying to change the narrative, or they are trying to change the narrative to what they want it to be, but it's the same thing that would have started out to be.
Thank you.
How confident are you? And I think I asked you something similar to this before, that your friend, was telling you the truth about Rymir's possible or alleged father as a friend, like friend to friend.
Right. How you saying how sure are you as just being a friend that she was telling you the truth about, who Rymir's father was? Yeah, I know 100% she was telling me the truth. She would never lie to me like that. She would never do anything to deliberately hurt Rymir, because just something like that would crush him. But it's so much bigger than Wanda, right? Because this is about being able not just to, we haven't even got to the paternity. We're still trying to get in the door.
Yeah.
And getting in the door is the due process, and the fraud is stopping it, and the court's allowing it. So as soon as you come in, you're trying to say, let me ask a question, and this is my problem, and you're not even addressing it. So we can't even get down that street until we finish where we are right now. So, but yeah, I'm 100% confident that Wanda would never, ever, ever, never make up a story like that just to make it up. And then her and her son, Rymir, I'm talking about super tight. She would never do anything like that. So the whole thing was for her to have closure. For her, she wanted Rymir to know why he was rejected by her living boyfriend. She wanted Rymir to know. She said, "I want Rymir to know why," because he was not. She knew he wasn't his.
Right.
So that was some other things that she had talked to him about ahead of time. But even before we get there, we could not get there because the court would not allow us to even ask the question. They allowed fraud to come into court. They participated in it, and they aided and abetted in it. And that was a violation of our rights as a a person of this country. And that's the real problem. And then once we get past, you let me ask a question. And then if we disagree, because the court is supposed to be in search of the truth. If you're in search of the truth, then let's do a discovery. That's all. It's just like any other process. But because they don't want it to get that far, this is where we are. They spin this thing as long as they can spin it. And now it is what it is. And it's embarrassing to the state. It's embarrassing to them. You can't explain why you're not allowing this a question of fraud in the fraud of court to be dealt with so that you can see the truth before you even get to paternity.
Right.
And that was the reason why we went to the civil rights department, because this was a violation of our civil rights of due process as a citizen of this country. And they won't process it.
Wow.
Because this thing goes deep. They're all in it. They're all in on it. And they said that in the family court, they're thick as thieves. We even just went to the civil court trying to get some relief. And the judge there was great. He said, "I can't do anything for you. You got to go back to family and get that straightened out." He said, "Don't appeal nothing." He said, "Just go back and deal with the fraud." That's what the judge said.
Man.
And that's what we did. But because he said that don't mean they're going to do it. Now They have what they call one of the head judges who was never part of nothing. I think they call her, she assigns it. We told her about the stuff back in the day. We said, look, there's some problems with this black judge because he was a higher judge in the family court. It appears to be a problem, blah, blah, blah. And sent her a note. Her staff got back to us and she says, well, she doesn't really consider this a problem because this is black on black.
Man.
That's what he said to me. The bondsman at the court told me, she says, Lillie, if I help you with this case, I'm going to lose my job.
Damn.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't mean to be redundant as well, but just to get the people up to speed that hasn't heard the story. And if you hadn't, go back to the shows prior to this on whatever platform you're watching or listening to get the full spectrum of what we're talking about. But you said in the beginning of this conversation that you had Jayz's cooperation at first and then it slipped off. Talk about that initial cooperation and then when it fell off.
And it fell off when the external attorneys got involved. And perhaps I was told maybe they were thinking that he didn't have a relationship with Wanda and it was no deep love there. And by the way, she might be underage. I don't know. I'm not sure about all the things that could have went back with that conversation. But I do know that in the very beginning, he was doing what he needed to do. And then the external attorneys, and it's in Philadelphia, they became a part of the case because that's where Wanda was. And it was a mess. Now, one of the attorneys in Philadelphia sent his wife to New Jersey. He has the 2.5 people in her firm. But they all know how to do that system. It ain't clean. And so forth and so on. Then there was another attorney that came along afterwards for the defense. And just really, I'm telling you, I won't say low end, but it's low end attorneys. It's not people that really are trying to solve the problem. No people are trying to hold up the law. All they want to do is see what they can get. I mean, it's very obvious. That's why I kept saying that with something with the attorneys and the judges. And then we did find out there were some government officials involved in the appellate level, which is the appeals court.
Man. Now, we talked about it briefly the last time you were on. Letitia Mercer.
Right.
That was a young lady who came out. and accused Jayz of being her father. Have you guys had any contact with them? And if I'm not mistaken, didn't she take a DNA test?
Right. So she was the one I was trying to explain in the beginning.
Right.
She did the ancestry test and she sent it to Rymir.
Okay.
She apparently, based on what she told us, she was very reluctant about taking it. She was told what she was told as a child. She had another man that raised her. A cousin of Mr. Carter's pursued her. I think a second or whatever cousin. She took the test with him. And he was able to open her up to these other ones on Ancestry. Ancestry is not as easy as everybody thinks. What happens is you can not necessarily block people, but you can limit who sees your stuff. Oh. So she did that. And then that's how she was able to get closer to the grandmother as far as the DNA and what there was the father, but he didn't have his real name in there. There's a man in New York who was managing his whole family tree, so to speak. And they know how to go in there and block stuff off. So she had that done. That's how she got her answers. She wanted to come to Rymir to even confirm it, to validate it more. And they were going to do the siblings test because Rymir's DNA, which is out there, was done by one of the biggest DNA people. And his stuff is on file. So right around that time, that's when she had her own litigation or fight with Mr. Carter in regard to proving that she was his daughter. She had pictures of him holding her, all this stuff, and they still was trying to fight her. So I guess her grandmother, somebody told her, hold off on Rymir until you get this straightened out. So we tried to talk to her, and she, she's not an aggressive person, but she don't like a lot of trouble. So she did what she did. Now I've heard two sides of the story, whether or not they were saying something about she might be, everything might be reconciled now with them. I'm not sure. And then other people saying she's still where she started. So for some people, that's just I told Rymir, for some people, that's just the way they are. They might be the MO to some degree, that if they haven't been a part of your life, they're not trying to get there now. Or it could be a spouse doing or saying something to that nature, or somebody. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so she right now did the ancestry. Rymir never got to that point to do it with her. And then when he went to go do his, some of the places we was trying to get closer to his goal, they were not available. So we know why, because I guess somebody would talk to the family and said this, that, and the other. And I told him, even if you do get closer to the second and first cousin, that's not what he wants.
Right.
He said he doesn't want that because he already know who he is. But he wants the person, the father, to acknowledge him. So, and that may not ever happen because of the age of Wanda.
Yeah. My last question would be, and I asked Rymir this the last time, and I'm guessing the young lady may have gotten some kind of financial compensation. That's why I just kind of shut up. That's my kind of opinion when you said it. Will financial compensation rectify this in you guys' opinion, even if you never get the admission? With the money at the very least kind of represent admission? Or is that public acknowledgement of, no, I have a son, his name is Rymir, and this is my son? Is that exactly is what he's looking for?
Yeah, for Rymir, that is. I think obviously people always would want to have some kind of compensation for emotional distress, even though you can't put a price tag on it.
Right.
But for him, it's 100% that. Well, I won't say 100, but mostly 90, and maybe compensation, even though he might say what otherwise. But he, it ain't gonna hurt him.
Right.
And at the end of the day, for me, it's I won't say it's both either, because I don't really care too much about the paternity piece. I hate to be rude about that, but I am concerned about all the false filings I had to respond to, all the transcripts. $600 and $800 a transcript of fraud that this system knew they were never going to do. I mean, it's a machine. Yeah. So I want what I put out returned, plus any legal, anything legal as far as the interest is concerned, since it's been so long. And then I would like a public apology. I ain't gonna lie. This has been crazy about the way we feel a black man would be doing black women and a black boy. So we got past all that because that's life. But at the end of the day, look what we've been through. All this manufactured stuff. And so the attorney was filing stuff certain times of the year so they can go on vacation. Because she always had certain times of the year she was doing stuff. It was a joke.
Man.
And then the orders that they done from the court, you can't even enforce those. Those orders are not enforceable. And anybody who tries to use them is considered a trespasser of the law. It's been all smoke and mirrors. So with all that, yeah, I think we need to get what we suppose, especially what we put out. And then if the court has, not the court, but whoever decides about the emotional distress that people then went through. It shouldn't take all this to get where we at, but for whatever reason it did. It's been crazy, to say the least.
Yeah.
So
do you fear the reverse thing happening? You know, we see this at age now where people call it, you know, clout chasing or trying to get, you know, fame or whatever. Do you fear, or do you ever look at the possibility of like a backlash, like a legal ramification of a backlash from them? Or are you 100% ready for that? Because if they did respond, then you would have a chance to put your evidence on the table as well.
Right. So the first thing about clout chasing, I saw that in the chat too. I am a national bookseller, wrote a book. I don't know if you guys know about me, but in that regard, I've been on national talk shows dealing with forgiveness, been offered my own talk show. I have stuff I've done. Mm-hmm. I started out my life with doing engineering the most part of my life, but I've been retired from that. So I have some things I've worked in my life to be who I am today. As far as backlash, there is no gag order. We have freedom of speech. The reason why I'm talking now, and I didn't talk before, is because of Rymir. Mm-hmm. Rymir is not a strong man as far as emotions. Mm-hmm. And he was not dealing with this very well in the very beginning because, as we said, I was naive. I thought that once we send something to whoever we got to send it to, this is going to be over. They're going to do the right thing. And then when we send it to the system, that's going to happen too. Well, I had a rude awakening. So we all got hurt in our own way. But I was trying to protect Rymir because I know he's younger than me and he's not as strong. He did some things in the past, went to a dark place, and I felt like we had to protect him. So now it's a different thing because he's stronger now. I feel like we need to talk. We have freedom of speech. We need to tell our truth and our story. Our case is mostly 100% paper, kind of, sort of, but there's quite a few parties to it, and they've done a lot of things in their own areas about their name being slammed through the mud. So at the end of the day, I just think that people got to understand this is something that evolved 1 year, fraud from the beginning. It's fraud at the end. So there's nothing to chase in the cloud. We all had to do some emotional releasing ourselves so that we could be standing citizens in the community and empower the community in addition to making it better. Because my vow is to make it better. So they're not going to be lashing nothing at me because there would be a sad story in the end for them. And they know that. But at the end of the day, look what this has become. You know, it was never about clout chasing. Somebody's trying to get their paternity rights and now our constitutional rights. You know, why can't we have both? Okay, let's deal with the Constitution and then go through the paternity. But for some reason, we wasn't deserving of it. Just don't try to do nothing. Don't try to settle. Don't try to do nothing with them. Sometimes for some of these attorneys, all they want is what they want for them. Mm. It's very sad, but we've seen court crimes right before our eyes. Mm. And I'm telling you, I never thought that I don't even have any children. But yet this has been brought to me, and God told me, you stay on course. He said, this battle's not yours. It's mine. Mm. And I said, yes, sir. And we're moving in this realm, trying to be decent citizens with integrity, tell the truth, and let this process go where it's going to go. But unfortunately, it went where it is. And there's other things that's going to come out of this. But I felt the need, like I said, to come back and clarify some things. And people can make their own decisions. Because I got to live with myself.
Right.
But at the end of the day, it's a sad thing for something like this to happen in the Black community, and then they allow certain things to happen because 2 Black men did this to us. They started it, and there's no offense to nobody. I got brothers myself, but 2 Black men started this, and they could have fixed it. So for whatever reason, they didn't. They allowed this to go on, and that right there for us, it hurts. The other people participated in later, but they led the pack. They led the pack.
Well, definitely appreciate you, being on the Hip Hop Uncensored podcast. If you got any other, remarks, the floor is now open. Anything you want to say, be our guest.
I wanted to make sure you guys had y'all questions. Was there anything that y'all had that's still kind of not making any sense?
No, I think, I know, at least from my perspective, can't speak for my cousin, but it all makes sense now after talking and having the conversations that we've had. Unfortunately, I just don't know if there'll ever be any closure, because sitting back from an outside perspective and looking at the magnitude of Jay-Z's brand and where he came, and if he were to do it, it would have easily been done a long time ago when he wasn't where he's at now, and the effect of that kind of news would tarnish a billionaire as opposed to somebody that was just in the hip hop game growing. I don't know. I really hope you guys find closure, because I liked Rymir. I enjoyed the conversation that we had on and off camera, and wish the best for him. And I enjoy our conversations with you. And the more I listen, the more I believe, So I just hope you guys find closure, and I really do. But I don't know.
I think we're finding it now. That's one of the reasons why I decided to start talking more about it.
Good.
It's indirect closure, it's indirect concerns, it's indirect conclusions. Everything is not going to always be cut and dry, but you got to know that you're supposed to be on that course or that travel or that road. And I know I'm supposed to be on this road for sure. So that's why I'm traveling it. And then going to travel it to make a difference and help somebody else, not just us, other people. So this never, ever, never, ever happen again. So that's the thing that I feel for me, that is going to really turn things around as far as when they say I forget, retribution, whatever it is, it would be for the outcome would be to make this place, this world, this life that we're living a better place to live by making some things happen that other people won't have to get hurt like we did from the system. Because the system can be very, very bad and mean to certain people and walk over people because of their certain economical things and just come back to walk over you again. That's why I stayed in the picture, because the stuff I just couldn't see. I couldn't deal with it. It's the things I saw.
Now, from the interviews that we did, I think we did 2 so far. Now this will be 3. Did you receive any, information, backlash, positivity outside of our platform that you would care to share with the people?
No, we haven't had any backlash. They haven't sent anything and done anything, because like I said, we're not in a gag order at all. And we have the freedom of speech, so forth and so on. Plus the cases, if a case is in limbo, it's considered closed. It's like it's at a place, and you can reopen it just like that, because that's the way family court is. But they're keeping it like that because they don't want to deal with it. But there's another case that's still pending that came out of that, but they don't know what to do with that, so they keep spinning it.
Right.
So at the end of the day, it is what it is in terms of where we're going to be going for our next steps. But the backlash, no backlash, none of that kind of stuff, and just waiting to see on the political or the community in terms of response. Now, we did get a lot of people that did want us to do interviews, but all they wanted to talk about was paternity. So we didn't want to do that. So a lot of interviews for paternity. I told him I can't talk about paternity. Rymir can talk about it because that can help his therapy, therapeutic. And then no backlashes because of the fact that they know that I know what's going on with this case. And me and some other very high influential people and political people. So the rule of law will always win. My mother said, follow the rule of law. When everybody else is trying to break it and bend it, she says, you follow it. And she was right. So every time you come back with what you come back, bam, fraud on the court, fraud upon the court. You can't do nothing until you fix that.
We appreciate you. If there's definitely something else to talk about, you're definitely welcome to come back. Any developments, anything, you're always welcome to come on the platform. Dr. Coley on the Hip Hop Uncensored podcast. I don't know if you want to leave your contact information. That's up to you. Social media. The floor is open.
My contact or information will be my email. If you want to contact me via email, it's Lillie, LILL.COLEY@gmail.com. I do have a small podcast talk show type of thing. I had to start talking about different things about my story that I went through as a childhood tragedy and about people's legal story. So that will be on Facebook or in other platforms, but Facebook for sure. And it's Keeping It Real with Dr. Lil. And basically, again, we're trying to just empower people to not be devastated and not become victims of their circumstances, but try to rise above that and make everything better. Not bitter, but better in terms of what they're going through.
Indeed, we definitely appreciate you as always. Like my cousin said, the floor is yours. If any other information or further information needs to come out, you know, you got a platform. We definitely appreciate you, Rymir. Take care.
Thank you so much for your support. Thank you guys so much.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Show. To introduce the show, when I sent this to Sam, asked, oh God, that nigga said, oh God, you the man, Cass. I spit white like a clan mask, and I'm a hustler. I could stand out on the beach and sell sandbags. Some things can't last, but this ain't just a podcast. This is Sam Ant and oh God, Cass. Hip hop uncensored is the vibe, so subscribe. Hip hop uncensored is the vibe, so subscribe. Oh God, driving Sam and riding passenger side, and you heard it out the mouth of the greatest rapper alive. Hip hop uncensored is the vibe, so subscribe. Hip hop uncensored is the vibe, so subscribe. Oh God, driving Sam and riding passenger side, and you heard it out the mouth of the greatest rapper alive. Go gang.